So let's talk about some all-star snubs. What players didn't make it, what players might have made it, and what players people are upset that didn't make it. This video is going to be obvious, and I did reference some of these guys in my previous video, but I just wanted to, speak on this matter for the first time. Firstly, I want to say that DeMar DeRozan did not get picked as an all-star. I think that this year's All Star shows that position in or rankings doesn't matter that much. But I do believe that DeMar was having a good season. I don't think he should have been an All Star as he was an All Star last year, and his last year's season was much better. But not having him make the All Star team was definitely something that surprised me. As on the Bulls, he's been on a tear, and they're the ninth seed. They're not that bad in terms of All Star voting. So it surprised me that he didn't make it. Another guy that surprised me that could have, and by the way, I'm talking about by snubs, I'm just talking about people who did not make it. I'm not saying that it was not because of a reason, I'm just saying like these guys did not make it to the team. So I'm just going to comment on the best guys who were not there. Then we have a guy like Pascal Siakam, which did make the team. Who did not make the team was Pascal Siakam, which surprises me since he's had one of the best seasons that he has had in a while. He's been very effective. He's been very good. But in the East, I think that the forwards were just way too stacked for him to make an All-Star. Apart from this, let's face it, the one time that he made an All-Star team, he was averaging 24 and 8 rebounds with 6 assists. He's not averaging close to those numbers, and especially in Indiana, even though he has shot incredibly the ball, we've only had 9 games of him being a pacer to base ourselves off of. Apart from this, we didn't have guys like LaMelo due to injury and also their play. We also did not have guys, which like Kyle Kuzma, which some people at the start of the season when he was playing really well said that he might shoot for an All-Star this year. But all of these things have led to those not being the players. But in the East, as I'm right now only speaking about the Eastern Conference, the biggest snub in the Eastern Conference is definitely Trae Young. Trae Young is in 10th place, which doesn't matter for seeding purposes for the All-Star game. And he's averaging 27 and 11, leading the league in assists, being the best player on his team, and consistently dropping big games, big performances, big scoring nights, big passing nights. And he has not yet gotten the All-Star nod this season, as he might get in as an injury replacement, but he's not getting it as a starter or a bench player in the base unit. In my opinion, this is extremely terrible, as Trae Young has been one of the best guards in the East and better than some of the guys that they put in that list. Let's face it, I love Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, but none of those guys have the numbers or the responsibility that a guy like Trae Young has. All of those guys have another player, they have more leverage in their team. A guy like Jaylen Brown is also another guy which made it, which in my opinion, he should have not been over Trae Young, because even though these are guys who are in winninger teams and teams which have better records, right? We do have to, there is something to say about what load are you carrying on a good team. Like Jalen Brunson, in my opinion, fully deserved it. He's carrying the biggest load on his team. He's consistently going out every night, doing his thing, and he's been proven to be the best player for the Knicks as their number one guy. But like some of those other guys, they're secondary or third players, right? Like Tyrese Maxey is second to Embiid, and even though I do believe that Tyrese Maxey deserved it, I feel like Trae Young was just better at every way. Yes, Tyrese Maxey is more effective, but I think that it's become to a point where the fans are not enough to get Trae Young into the All-Star game. Because even though the fans like him, the media and the coaches, they do not like him at all. They don't like how he plays. They don't like his personality. They don't like the way that he carries himself. And even though, yes, you might say that it also has to do with him always being compared to Luka, so he never looks like he's good enough. But a guy who's averaging 27 and 11 in any season should be regarded as one of the best players, period. And I don't think that should be a discussion in any way for this season. Now, in the Western Conference, the biggest snubs are a few. Obviously, we know who made it if you watched my last video, but I do believe that some of the snubs were like Jamal Murray, who's been playing great this season. You know, Jamal is one of those guys where he's been hooping, he's been really playing well, but I think because of his health, which even though he has played a good amount of games, I think his health has also been a big factor in that as he's only played 36 games. But he has gotten better. I feel like both of the Kings' big two, you know, Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, also didn't make it. Zion Williamson has not made it yet. Obviously, by the way, we don't know who's actually going to make it in the end because there's a lot of guys who are hurt from these players. So if one of the All-Stars gets hurt, then they'll find a replacement for them. So right now, we do not know if some of the guys are going to sneak in. But if the All-Star ballots, everyone were to be healthy, people like Zion, which is having an amazing season and has played a lot of games and is carrying his team to a lot of wins, is not making it. And the reason why is because he's stopped putting so much stress on his body and has decided to play a more conscious and a more, smart way of basketball, to say the least, and a smarter way to play basketball. Lauri Markkanen did not make it, which honestly surprised me for the forwards. As even though, yes, I do believe the West is very stacked and the top teams do get 2 picks, a guy like Lauri was honestly almost 50-40-90 as a forward, as a power forward, averaging 24 points per game and 9 rebounds. That was pretty impressive. And for the centers, obviously, Şengün didn't make it. Clay didn't even come close. Ja was hurt. And guys like Anthony and Victor Wembanyama just don't have the years. And in my opinion, this is why the league is interesting. For the West, it was obviously the De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis pick that was the most rough. People who have a good record. And by the way, I want to say something before I expand on the Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. So basically, that in the NBA, there's a lot of players which are good. And in the All-Star team, it shouldn't be treated as an All-NBA ballot. The All-Star team is for the best players. It doesn't have to do with record. And the whole point of the All-Star team is to reward individual performances for star players, right? But honestly, when we see a case like this, like the West, we could see, and the East, we could see some snubs like Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. Like, those two guys have been playing really well. And I understand that there's some guys which you could say are playing better than them. But it's like, even in the East, I guarantee you there's not 5 guards who are just playing better than Trae Young. So in my opinion, when you look at some of these All-Star teams, I understand that some teams it's good for them to have 2 because they're good in the standings. It's good for them to have some type of leverage because obviously it takes more to run certain teams and to have certain teams be amazing or have them run correctly. You know, it takes more star power from Trae Young to play in the Hawks at this current moment than it does for some other players, you know, to play in their systems. Let's say like a Jaylen Brown. And I'm not saying that to diss anybody. I'm just saying that because we need to reward the players which are good regardless of what you think about their personalities. I say that with a lot of intent. I'm not a super Trae Young fan. I am a fan of him. I like his game. And I do think that he's a great player, but I'm a Heat fan. Like, we're known for stopping this guy and for having playoff bouts against him. So it's not like I want him to win in terms of in the playoffs. It's not like I want him to win a championship, but I definitely think that for a player of his caliber, putting the respect that he deserves on his name is something that's important for the succession of the league. Like, if we have stars which are not being rewarded for the level of play for which they are showing, then is it really a fair league, or are we just rewarding players based on their likability and what the coaches think of you? In my opinion, this is the moment where Trae Young needs to start fixing his personality, because if he actually wants to be remembered as a great and not forgot in history, then he needs to start actually, being more compassionate, being more of an open player, being less of like a diva and a villain, and focus more on being a better person to the coaches and the people around the league. Because even though the players respect you, if the coaches don't, then it's gonna be hard for you when your ability becomes zero. That's why a guy like Tim Hardaway right now is still being given opportunities when he had some of the roughest years of his career, and he finally picked it back up, because guys like that who are liked by coaches or liked by players get more opportunities. So I feel like it's not too late. Trae Young needs to fix his personality and probably do that quickly, because it's now hurting his NBA legacy as a whole.